vuelta. Hola community, welcome to another episode, another week of news, of Blender news, covering a bit of everything. This week we have some modeling updates. It's not the big news that are gonna come as part of the Google Summit of Code project, hopefully, which this week is the last week, by the way. So you're gonna see, hopefully, a lot of new development going on not too long from now. It should be in the coming weeks as the code goes through reviews and the usual. What else? How's everybody in the chat, by the way? Thumbs up if everything is fine, if the audio and the video is fine. We are at that time of the year where I cannot really change the the aperture of the camera without the shutter speed without messing it up. So let's go directly into the announcements. Not many actually, and the announcements this week are not from Blender, but they are from Blender friends. So let's share them. It's NVIDIA. They, you know that they recently merged the USD export changes in Blender. So now everybody can export USD and import in Blender. But also they are going to continue that development on a branch. They're going to add support. They want to add support for with the MTLs and basically improvement, continue development on a branch that it is hosted. It's don't worry, don't go out crazy that NVIDIA is forking Blend. No, it's a branch of Blender, just like any other branch that is continuing development there. If it happens on a branch, you know how it goes, then the review can be much easier, much more easily done. The branch is hosted on builder.blender.org. It's gonna be here, so you're gonna be able to download it just like any other branch. But also they're gonna provide a here, universal is in description. But also you're gonna be able to use a launcher by them, the OMNIVERSE launcher. So it's gonna be on August 6th. On Blender's website and GitHub. So make sure you check that one out if you want. All right, time to continue. USD is like FBX. Yeah, right. In very simple words. Well, I mean, those are very simple words, because the big thing about USD is that it's open source. FBX, it can't be more far than open source, and yeah, it's not so cool. Open source is cool, you know? Next, that's it actually. Let's get into the news of the day, of the week. We have a thread open here, but I actually just said I hope it was gonna be open, but Samsuls, as always, posted it 10 minutes ago. There is already one question, so make sure you leave your questions. We're gonna try to answer them towards the end of the show, the second part of the show. And let's try to brighten this up a little bit. Okay, let's start with the title of this video. Knife Project. So the projection version of Knife now is supported by multi-object level. I was compiling Blender. I don't know what happened with let me check if I finished compiling or not. Yes, it actually finished compiling. Yes, compiling on. I'm compiling on. I'm still on Windows now, and compiling it's a bit slower for some reason. I know I'm all burnt. So it is here, so I should be able to run Blender right now and show you. So this is in one level up. The terminal is terrible in this thing though. Release Blender, right? Then go here, then Blender X. It's like the good old times. It takes forever. I'm gonna be streaming from the studio soonish. Oh, I have the wrong theme here. Let's use my theme here. Okay, cool. The Knife Project tool now should work on multiple objects. So what does it mean? Well, you have knife, right? You have the knife tool over here. And when you are cutting here, you can make it so it will project. So it will apply to all the if you use it from the shortcut, it's also the same. So knife project is gonna basically have, if you have two objects in this case, and then you do knife project, now other selected object have wire or boundaries edges for use for projection. Yeah, you need to have some wire, some knife, some vertices that don't have a face that are going to be used for projection. This is going to be supported by multiple objects. So the if you have multiple meshes, it's going to be, yeah, it's going to work. I didn't test it though. And the error, the very useful error, says that no other selected objects have wire or boundary edges used for projection. Okay, and why is this an error? If I have, now I want to try it. So I have this. And if I have a line, is this how it will work? No. Tutorial, I need a tutorial. Never use a knife. First time compiling Blender, it works. Yeah, but it takes time though. It's not as fast, and for some reason it slows down the entire computer as I start to use it. I can't get the knife project to work though. Why is it failing on just a simple mesh? Knife project uses another object as a cutter, yes, with its edges to project through selected objects. Thank you, Erindale, for the uses another object as cutter, which is edges to project through selected objects. Yeah, but that's what I selected one object and then select another object, and then I need to enter knife project because that is in edit mode, and it's still giving the error. So something wrong, right? I should send a bug report. I'm overexposed. Yeah, I know I'm overexposed. If I put it down, then it's gonna, the moment there is more sun, it's gonna go away. You have to use it in ortho view. No, you see? So it's not working. Knife line as an object, I think. Blender Premium membership available. Yes, you have to give a like to this video, and then, yeah, separate object of just edges. Wow, Jesus, why do you need like an entire, so you need a separate object that is just edges. So X delete faces, and then this on top of it, and then knife project. Okay, that is very intuitive. I think we need more fixes than just making it multi-user. Okay, so I have only edges, and then I project. Okay, now it's doing it. It has to be only edges. Why would that be a limitation? I wonder. Why couldn't it be just any kind? Separate object of just edges. Okay, thank you, Erindale, for helping out. If you don't, if you want to see more tutorials by Erindale, just go to YouTube and find this awesome icon to get his tutorials. But I can't imagine this. Like, why would it be so convoluted, and why it doesn't even tell you that it has to be edge only on a separate object? Although it tells you. I'm spending way too much time on this thing. But now it doesn't fail. If I select an object and this, oh, I have no other object, selected object have wire or boundary edges to use for projection. Yep, it could be much better. So never mind what I just tested. This it needs to improve the UI. Is he the guy who made the new Blender splash screen? Exactly. Yeah, that's him. Next improvement related to edit mode, actually. There's a performance, mainly performance, in high poly meshes. So the change, it's like the largest gains are on high poly meshes. How large? Well, 1.5 million polygons is showing about 2 times faster speed up, whereas 25 million polygon meshes, plenty, is about 2.8 times faster. That is a very welcome change. However, meshes where there's not so many polygons, it's actually going to be slower. How many? Well, around 250,000 can be a bit slower. However, when meshes of about 250 polygons, 1,000 polygons, they are already not slow because there's not so many polygons. So based on the tests, the developers went ahead and made this change. The tests were done with super high poly meshes, and also with the files from Sprite Fright, from the current OpenMovie project at the Blender Studio. And it's showing that it's usually the same or even better performance. Usually the files, the objects in the OpenMovie projects, they are rarely in that high polygons. Usually they are very optimized. Okay, I'm having Mattia. I don't know why I feel my my voice crackling. Is the lack of because I haven't talked in a few days. It was the weekend, so didn't talk that much. And today I didn't go. I went to the studio for a little bit, but actually last week on Tuesday I started going to the studio again, to the Blender HQ. So I need to order a microphone for the studio and a sound card. If you have any sound cards that you recommend with compressor, let me know. I'm gonna be back at the studio doing live streams there. I need to get a bunch of Christmas lights and all this goodie that I have at home to replicate at the studio. Siguiente. Next. The Spanglish is strong. Next improvement, also related to performance, is hard to measure, but it has to do with the dope sheet, timeline, all the editors that have, all the animation editors that have keyframes on them. It could get very, very slow. If you have a lot of keyframes, just having the editor open could get a bit slow. Now, it has to do with the drawing of the keyframes. Now, all the keyframes are going to be drawn in one call, so that is a huge speed up in terms of, instead of drawing each one of the keyframes, now it's all in one. So yeah, in that sense, it is hard to measure, but it should be very, very welcome. And speaking of animation, in a completely different topic, so this is more like rigging side of things, / constraints / user interface. The change that was done to the modifiers recently in the last few releases, about having the drop-down menu for applying, for duplicating a constraint, for copying to selected. Sorry, modifiers, not constraints. That change that was for modifiers, now it's in constraints. So a very, very welcome change, especially while moving up and down, but like copy to selected, that you would only be able to do it via the Control L menu for copy, for linking, or also with the add-on, right? I think with the copy attributes add-on. So now this brings the functionality here. Okay. I think we can already move into user interface. There is a bunch of changes that I didn't know exactly which section they go. I think they all belong in many different levels around the user interface. The first one is a quality of life improvement for previews, for material previews in the asset browser, or when you append materials in your scenes, from the file browser thumbnail view. So it used to look like this. It used to look like reflective materials were not really very attractive. So they were reflecting, but it was reflecting an empty environment. Not anymore. Now the there is a hidden floor that it will be used for reflections. So every material should look a bit better. All your materials should like have some kind of fake floor around it to make them nicer. Also works for transmissive materials. So for like refraction or transmission, it will be much nicer. Instead of being just plain gray, now it has this little distortion down there. Also for Eevee. In Eevee, it's a different approach. It's using a cube map, but it is about the same concept. So yay for nicer thumbnails. That is all. Thank you, Jeroen, for working on this and reviewing Julian and Sivrin. The next improvement is a couple of changes improvements done on the clip editor. We don't see many updates in the clip editor lately. This one, it's bringing the functionality of the 2D cursor that is already in other 2D editors, such as the image editor, where you have the 2D cursor and the coordinates. You know, you can access via Python, or you can also from the UI change the coordinates of the cursor. Now you can do it for the clip editor. It wasn't exposed. Why? It's crazy when you see how, like, we always try to make things consistent, but Blender is so large that you miss things like that. There was a 2D cursor, it wasn't exposed in the user interface, the coordinate. So that's why we need as many eyes as possible. And thank you, Aaron, for working on this. The clip editor, move annotation panel to the new view tab, so as to match the rest of the editors. Then the file/asset browser got this tiny improvement that will make your life. It's also a quality of life improvement. Have you ever noticed that when you right click on a file, on a list in the file browser or in the asset browser, it would actually give you a context menu, but not for the file where you clicked. So you could have, say, a file selected on the top of the list. If you right click on the bottom of the list, the changes that you did will apply to the selected. So a completely different file. Kind of dangerous, I would say. This change by Julian makes it so when you right click on a file on the list, it will make it active. So it gives you the right click menu for context. Such a small change in terms of like in the idea, but if you look at the code, actually it will take a few more changes that you would think. The next this is a small step for the asset browser, a big step for Blender, because as of last week, the asset browser is no longer experimental anymore. It used to be that you had to enable a setting in the user settings, in the preferences, developer extra, and then extend experimentals. The thing is, the post library browsing part of the asset browser is already considered ready for production. It's in master, so it should be ready for production, and it's going to be part of Blender 3. However, all the other parts of the asset browser, like marking materials and objects as assets, it's not there yet in terms of what the team wants to ship with as production ready. So in order to prevent confusion by the users, those settings are going to be experimental. So by default, you're going to see the asset browser, but it's only going to be showing stuff related to post library. If you right click on a material, you're not going to see mark asset, for example, as it used to be, unless you enable the extended asset browser setting in the user preferences. So yes, in a way, it is a loss, but on the other hand, it's also making things a bit clearer. The idea is to basically bring back the functionality of the asset browser, but like one data block at a time. So, okay, we're gonna focus on materials. Okay, material browsing should be the best it can be, as like for the first milestone. And then, okay, objects. Let's make objects great. Let's make collections importing great, and that for every other asset. But trying to do all the data block types like work well on the day one, no. Sometimes it's better to shrink the scope. I'm gonna have another drink. Look, I'm having another mate because I took the one from that I was using here. I took it to the studio, and this one has a little llama in it. Now I don't feel so weird drinking mate because the Messi, he drinks mate and he made it very popular around the world. Even in the presentation on the Paris PSG, he is drinking mate, and they even made a ad of him drinking mate. So I don't feel like people look at me weird like, hey, what kind of drugs are you taking? You're in Amsterdam, so it must be. Next improvement after that off topic is cycles. Well, this is user interface, but it's related to cycles. Why is it user interface? Because it's a metadata support for changing the labels and the checkboxes in open shading language nodes. This change is mainly aesthetics. So you can have, to improve the presentation of nodes in the node editor, recognize the following metadata from the open shading language specification: UI label, checkbox, and Boolean. And then here, there's a few drawings. No string. Well, if you look at the task, you're gonna find the entire list of changes done by Pedro Puffmaniaco. Thank you, Pedro, for working on it. So cool to have you adding stuff in Blender Master. Okay, a round of changes in the user interface that are more house cleaning or another quality of life improvement is the Philip has been working on a bunch of these ones to make the user interface more consistent and to make more sense in a way. Why? Because, for example, there were instancing options available for objects that didn't make any sense. So an object would have a setting for, like an empty object will have a setting to do instance vertices or faces, dupli faces, how it used to be called. Didn't really make a lot of sense. So it's so great that Philip went ahead and make not only this change of hiding instancing options when it doesn't make sense, but also the object instancing panel as well for object types that don't support instancing. But also the hide viewport display bounds for object types that don't have a bounding box. Not all objects have bounding box. So very welcome. And this one, it's mainly about performance, but there is a number of changes coming to the way fonts are displayed in the file browser. This one, it's just it's mainly a cleanup and to avoid calculating fonts that are not really being used. In this case, it's reduced the render time to load a font because it's keeping some unused glyphs that are not that are not used. So basically, why would you even load them? This actually Harley has a couple more changes coming there, which I'm pretty excited about, of the improving the previews and such. So cool. That area also in Blender doesn't get much love usually. And time to switch gears. Let's switch into the VR/XR, a fix/improvement. the color depth adjustments commit by Peter Kim. It's meant to address the reduced visibility of some scenes displays in the VR headsets that can result from the 8-bit color depth format currently used for XR swap change images. Okay, some parts I'm not completely following, but if you had issues with the visibility of some scenes, that should be fixed now. So very much welcome. Switch to geometry now. This is okay. These changes are like one per section, but it's just to I like the sound of Mario pipe. Okay, geometry nodes in the subdivide smooth node. Now we have options for UV smooth, boundary smooth, just like you have in the modifier itself. These are two drop downs, which it seems like they don't fit by default. We have to make some nodes wider, but yeah, super nice. So the original patch by A10, updated by Kalra, and then committed by Hans, I think. That's so good, and reviewed by Hans Broly. Yes, so yay, team effort. Switching gears again to the video sequence editor. One fix / improvement is in the way the lines are drawn for waveforms. This change makes it so if you ever had this issue when you zoom in a lot in a strip and you don't see the waveform because it was using triangles to draw the shape, and they could fail in some cases. So that has been fixed, and now it should work properly. It should draw like lines. This is when you are like really zoomed in. But yeah, very nice fix, Sebastian. Thank you. Also, this is only a few, just 2 changes that I'm mentioning, but Sebastian has been improving the video sequence editor seeking, for example. Sometimes some audio files will be off by 1, like we'll have 1 frame off. Those should be tackled. If you ever run into that, try Blender, download Blender again from this week. Should be fixed. This one, for example, flush audio encode after finishing video export. Sometimes it wasn't being flashed, which led to audio packets being lost. Nobody wants their packets lost. Okay, let's continue. Blender is also a drug. Yeah, it can be. It can be hard to leave. Sometimes I go to bed way too late. I think on the weekend, Saturday, I was streaming on Twitch Blender stuff until like 5 a.m. or so. Not great. Not great, Pablo. You're not 20 anymore. Okay, let's switch topics into the add-ons section. There's a couple changes in add-ons that I don't usually mention, but sometimes good to rigify. For example, the face rig components that used to be experimental now are in the regular non-experimental. So yay for that upgrade. Also, did you know that there is a add-on built-in Blender that comes with Blender? It's off by default, but you can turn it on to simulate snow. So yeah, you basically grab a character, look for the real snow add-on, press a button, and then it makes snow on top of your characters and your objects and your letter and your fonts. Try it out, super cool. This one, this change, it's committed by Marco, but it also includes a faster calculation for the mesh by Drew Pertula. Okay, next. I think we are, yes. We are almost at the end. Python. This is related to add-on, but this is more like Python for add-on developers. Add-on developers have requested to have access to built-in shaders in Blender. So a way to, yeah, Blender internally uses some shaders that now has been exposed part of the GPU module, the shaders are 3D, polyline, smooth color, and flat color. So make your add-ons pretty. The other, it's not related to add-ons, but it's related to Python. If you're familiar with Blender's Python / register of scripts when you run Blender, you will probably remember that there was this weird requirement that in order to be able to enable to make an add-on register on load, it had to be .py, like a Python file. Otherwise, the setting for registering would be grayed out. Very weird requirement. That has been lifted. Now it's you're going to be able to register add-ons or scripts that are not ending in .py. Okay. I think I'm losing my voice. I didn't even talk that much today. And after this, I have to do the Spanish live stream, which is usually much longer. It's like 2 hours or more. Because in Spanish I get taken over. I just keep talking. You know, Spanish people, Latino people, they just talk and talk and talk. All right, let's talk about Cycles X. In Cycles X, two separate words. Look at that. Add position render pass. I've wanted this for so long. There were ways of doing it internally in Blender. You could have like an AOV pass that takes the position of all the objects from the geometry position and then make it as a shader and then render that shader as an AOV pass. There were ways of faking the position pass, but now it's built in. Isn't that great? Like a real engine. No. It's that a position pass was really needed. I remember working with some studios where they were using Nuke or other software, and it's very common to have the position pass. Now, Cycles X has it, as well as support for diffuse, glossy, and transmission baking filter, just as this one. Yeah, new pass types combined with direct and indirect light. So yay to see Cycles X not only matching the feature set that it used to have, but also adding super important features. And that is all. I think I have enough, that we have plenty of time for some questions and for relaxing a little bit. Okay, how's the chat going? Gonna give you guys a little time to ask questions. There is 11 comments, so I'm gonna switch to my evil side there. Nice show, thank you. What does it do, the position pass? Well, a position pass is very handy when you're rendering because it gives you literally a point in space. So you can have the coordinates of a point somewhere in space and you can track things to that. So if I have my position pass of the scene, I can map something to the position of the glasses, for example. It's used for masks also. If I have a render layer of me and I want to make my face more red, for example, there are many ways of doing it with Cryptomatte, but also I could just have a mask on my face and then use the position pass to track that and use it as a tracking, patenting, whatever. You get the idea. It's very handy, super handy. When can we expect 3.0? At the end of the year, hopefully. Hopefully, there are still no plans. People have been asking, but there's still no there are plans, but there's no set in stone date. Ideally, some time ago it was mentioned around October, but I personally think it would be a bit later, maybe November, depends on how things go. If you watch this show, you're gonna be the first to learn about it. Okay, now we have, we still have 11 comments, so let's go through them. Oh, the first question. What theme do you use? Where can I download it? Well, you can't. No, I'm kidding. Is this my Blender? Yes, it is. Okay, so I've been, I want to, for Blender 3.0, speaking of Blender 3.0, I want to introduce some changes to the theme. I am the responsible of the Blender current theme of this one. I wanted to, for Blender 3, to have a little bit of a facelift in terms of theme, mainly, and some changes in the UI. For example, changing the icon to be like this triangle that we are familiar with instead of this chevron icon instead of the other icon. Also, I want to introduce like you can see where the panel starts and ends. Also, make the actual panel and the header part of the same thing. Rounded corners. So when you're here, for example, well, here the background is not bright enough, but if you do have some content, you see that they are rounded corners on the panels. So there's like tiny little boxes, which I think it looks not only nicer, but also more in line with the rest of Blender. Because if also in, for example, here the buttons, the items in the list are also rounded. The theme can change. I'm just playing with these colors as of today, but like this is rounded as opposed to, for example, in regular Blender, this is all like square. And it's not that I'm hard coding things to be rounded. I'm actually using the rounded value in the list. So you see, this goes all the way to the edge. And if you, in the preferences, if you change this is the list item. No, not list item, menu item. So this is menu item. If you change the color, it changes the color, but you change the roundness and is not affected. So what I did basically is just use this value, so you can have a similar look if you don't want. There's a bunch of little changes here and there, which I'm going to present eventually when I'm more ready with it. So to answer your questions, I haven't published this anywhere, so it's not available anywhere yet, but it will eventually. I'm mainly also using the live stream as a quick test, just to see if people notice the changes. They're not too bad, but you see the difference, right? Also, these titles were bigger font than the rest of the text, which I think it adds more noise. But yeah, small things. Next question. Hi Pablo, will we ever get the ability to simple drag and drop multiple objects, OBJs and FBX right into Blender viewport to import them? Also, it would be nice to import. Okay, so the first questions, yes, I think it's something we wanted for a while. There has been some attempts. The last patch, I don't know what is the current status of that patch, but it is more promising. However, it's not a walk in the park, because the OBJ or FBX, they are all add-ons. So in Blender, for example, now you can drag and drop blend files, and that works because we know that Blender will always be able to open blend files, so you can just assume that it works. FBX and OBJs, they are add-ons, extensions, so you have to first check that the add-on exists, that is installed. But also, if you want to do it properly, then you will allow any add-on to register that in Blender, like to register a drag and drop command. So I don't remember the name of the patch, but it is it's being worked on by someone in the community. I can't remember. Basically, the long story short, it's not so easy because there are add-ons, and the fix will be to let any add-on, not only FBX or OBJs, to register drag and drops, like a drag and drop areas. So also it would be nice to be able to import multiple OBJs through the file browser. Yeah, that would be pretty neat. Again, I don't know if, how would you go about it? So you have multiple settings for the same. It has like one. Yeah, how would it work? You have one size, one settings, one set of settings for all the objects. I found a script to do it in the current version, but older versions are broken. I don't see it lasting long without being updated. Yeah, that's the problem with add-ons, that they depend on the authors. Thanks to all the Blender team. Do you have any news regarding the better integration of AMD graphics into Blender? Any development comparable to NVIDIA? No, I don't know what was the last meeting from the render team. So let's see other meetings. Rendering meeting. When was this? 13 days ago. Usually here is where I just read about the notes. Here, AMD has most Cycles X test passing with their first implementation, with their implementations. Drivers and patch for testing is still expected to come within a few weeks. Hey, that's promising. So yeah, that is the answer. And again, you only this info is available for everyone. You just go to the dev talk and then go into other meetings, and you're gonna find all the meetings. The Blender rendering meeting happens every 2 weeks. So yeah, there you can read all the news. Like Vulkan, how is it moving? OpenSAFDiv. Yeah. Next question. I was wondering if you could check out my proposal for material and shader nodes changes and give feedback when you have time. Let's see. How are we with time? Oh, we're okay. Materials and new shader nodes assets. Ooh. Edited after confusion in comments. Okay, good start. This will work like geometry nodes. Okay, how long is this? Okay. This will work like geometry nodes asset, but for materials and shader nodes. The approach will allow us to reuse one set of nodes with different inputs. That way you're not constantly copying and pasting the exact same shader nodes to each materials when you want to reuse them. Adds way less clicks and looking for values. You to pick and choose which values to expose the materials. Okay, if I understand from reading this, is that you are able to expose certain sliders or values in the material. Yeah, I love this. I love this concept. Absolutely. Thumbs up. Well, I mean, I should read it first probably, but but yeah, it only makes sense. It will be easier to share and stuff. Some people seem to be confused, but I think you addressed. Okay, next. Hi Pablo, why does the annotate tool not exist in the graph editor? It feels very useful for doing some markings on how the curve should look. Good question. Didn't that exist in the past? I don't see a reason why it shouldn't exist. I think it should. Didn't it exist in the past? I remember at some point it was everywhere and then removed some places. But it should be. Especially now that it's called annotate. Before it was grease pencil. It was everywhere and it could get confusing, but now it's annotate, so it should be. Okay, next. Blender hi Pablo. I hope life is treating you well. It is. I would like to know what is the official position of the Institute. Wait, concerning the future of Blender, concerning VFX. Is it something they want to push more, concentrate instead of on cartoon animation, or both? Cheers. No, I don't think it's focusing on cartoon animation. Like the fact that the current open movie has a cartoon look doesn't mean that the focus of the Blender Institute is on making cartoon films. I think you can achieve with this. Well, right now the development that is going on is mainly around geometry now, so it doesn't have anything to do with the rendering. With the changes in cycles and the position pass added this week, the improvements for like linking or light groups and stuff, those are gonna be great for VFX. I don't know, what do you mean exactly by what is the official position of the future of Blender for VFX? I mean, other than supporting improving the motion tracker, or what exactly? VFX can be anything, right? Is it compositing? The compositor is getting all the nodes improved in terms of speed for full frame. The future would be to have a real-time compositor, hopefully, such as Eevee, but in the viewport. That also is related to VFX. I don't know exactly what is Blender currently doing now that it doesn't apply to VFX. Because VFX is everything, right? Is from modeling something to having a better, for example, Cycles X has a way better shadow catcher than Cycles, right? With support for bounces, indirect light, and all stuff. And that is good for VFX. So is that a sign that Blender is going VFX? No, it's just Blender improved because it has to. It's I think every change improves that. Every change in Blender will improve VFX, as well as it's going to improve like CAD stuff, or cartoon films, or realistic films, or what the Deuce is doing, or what anything. Yeah, it's a bit broad. Tintotin says, "Hi Pablo, while we impatiently wait for the add-ons channel here on Blender Community." Yeah, I know, that is escalated. We're gonna have, well, basically we were almost ready to launch. We made it, we were gonna launch it, but I think that better fits in Blender itself, like a Blender.org project. So we're going to be looking into that, looking into making it more of an official product than Blender.community. Maybe you could bang the drum for this project, which lists all Blender add-ons on GitHub. Blender Depot, Netlib 5. I don't know this, but I know Blender Awesome, which it's a list on GitHub that contains a ton of add-ons, and they're marked free or non-free, and it's just amazing that someone maintains this. It's like a infinite, almost nearly infinite list of improvements. So yeah, and there's the link to their even non-Blender stuff. So yeah, this list is pretty cool. I don't know the other project, Blender Depot. Is it open source? Read more. I don't know if you're supposed to use the logo like that, but you have your add-on on GitHub. So it's for checking add-ons on GitHub, but this is, it is open source. Looks cool. 2 years ago. I wonder if this is working with the latest Blender. Probably not. 2019, that is May 2019. That is Blender 2.7 still, because 2.8 came out in the summer of that, in July, I think, of that year. 2.8, yeah. Maybe has to be updated. Next question. But yeah, to answer your question, we are having, like, it escalated. We wanted to have something small, add-ons in Blender community, but it's still not announced anywhere because we have to figure out when, how, who is gonna make it even. But we want to do it properly as part of a Blender project. Mile asks, and there's 3 questions left, which is good because we are past 6 p.m. Camera culling. Hi Pablo, says Mile. A question about camera culling. Camera culling is the key to unleash the power of displacement, allowing increasing insane amount of detail. In Cycles, there is an option under Simplify about camera culling. What this option effectively does. I think it's just doesn't render anything that is outside of the view. So if you are in Cycles, Simplify, you have here camera culling. So it removes here from, if you go to the camera view here, so it uses this value to like render to remove anything that is outside of the camera view, which can help with speeding up render a lot, as you can imagine. However, it's also can be potentially not super reliable. If you have a tree here, for example, if you have a tree, it is my great tree, that is projecting a shadow here, for example, if I use camera culling, then I'm going to be removing, internally Blender will remove this, any geometry that is outside. And even though it's going to be lighter in memory, I'm going to suddenly have a shadow that will disappear, which can lead to flickers, of course, and not super great. So yes, it exists also for distance. This is actually newer. You can stop rendering after a specific distance from the camera. Super nice. 3 few notes. Okay, first one, last week I posted this image and I also wanted to say it would be good to change scale and rotation during extrusion. Would also be nice to have the chance to define the vertex group in a subdivision modifier to increase the detail only in a certain area to reduce poly count and preserving performance. Do you think this feature will be addressed? If it's in OpenSubdiv, it could, but I'm not sure if it is. You know, Blender uses a library for this, for adaptive subdivision. Not sure if that is optimal, like for calculating, because you're, yeah, I don't know. The next change question will be some tool to solve self-intersecting edges during inset for bevel operations. To solve that, well, it should be like some kind of clamping, right? So when it reaches a limit, just try to avoid that basically. But is that a setting that is during the operation or after? Because maybe you want that. Very unlikely though, but maybe. Yeah, I wonder how would that work. How does other software do it? Do they don't let you go further, or how? Next question by J. Anthony. Morning, Pablo. First off, I didn't know you were a skater. Skater boy. No, I'm not well, I like skating, but I picked up that at the beginning. I got a skate time ago, but during Corona lockdown, I started using it more. And yesterday, if you have ever been to Amsterdam, I went from Amsterdam North all the way to the Vondelpark, which is like 10 kilometers on skate by myself. So now my leg hurts, but it was super fun. I love it. Although I wish I would have done it on my 20s and not starting on my 30s, because I can see that the day I fall, I haven't fallen yet, knock on wood, it's gonna hurt. Firstly, is the USD plugin supposed to give Blender the full native USD workflow, or is the USD branch supposed to enable the full workflow? What do you mean by full workflow? The USD plugin, no, there's no plugin for USD. It's actually built in Blender for export and for import. And in master, it should give you everything that is currently supported in master. There is a branch, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that allows for MDL export, for example, but that eventually will become part of Blender. It's not, all branches are supposed to be temporary. It's just so development can go more easily without breaking other stuff and not getting on the way of other development. That's why branches exist. Let's see. And about animation news on character management. I have this idea for maybe having different variants of collections. Share it. Maybe make a proposal here on right-click select. But this will come with the asset management, I think, for collections. Hi Pablo, you're good. Thanks, Godsend. Thanks for your work. Thank you, here it is. Super nice comment. And the last question by Sansuls. Will there be something like the add-on X Pose Picker, but natively in Blender in the future? Is it better to have features like this as an add-on? Let's see. Ew. Okay, it's full version of the picker. So what is it, like a drawing on top to have? Ew, what is this? It's a separate app altogether, basically, that allows you to pick. There are some implementations in Blender. I think it would be, so you got a mega grant but it's still paid. How does it work? Anyway, not gonna comment on that, but posing, yeah, pose picker, that it should be in Blender. It should be Blender. There should be like a built-in way of building UIs for rigs. However, also there should be a way to select the directly on your character without having a drawing on the side. Both should exist. Maybe a prototype could be done as an add-on, but not with the maybe as a prototype could be an add-on with the new GPU module, but I think it would be nicer to first try and do it directly in the viewport, like selecting parts of your model and just be hands-on with the model, not with a spreadsheet on the side. And that is the last question. So I think we are good to wrap it up. It's actually 10 minutes past 6. So I am kind of on time. How's the chat, by the way? Let me open it here. Full. Let's see. How's the questions? Is Cycle still gonna crash AMD GPU? Of course not. Nobody wants it to crash. If it crashes, there are many reasons why it could crash. Why it could crash because of out of memory or just not compatible. But any crash that you have, please report. Go to inside of Blender, go to help, report a bug, because that will take the information of your driver's version and the current Blender version you're using, and it will put it on Blender.org so developers can see, okay, this graphics card model and this version of the drivers fails on this version of Blender. That's the best thing you can do. Don't have, if you have a crash that you can reproduce, don't just hope for it to be fixed. You can do something about it. You can go and report it. The more people that report it, the better. Crashes are the best thing you can report because they are easier to track. If you have a random crash that only happens one every blue moon, then it's hard to pinpoint the exact issue. So yes, anytime you have a crash, please report it, because that's how Blender gets more stable. all the fixes that you see, they are reported by people just like you everywhere and every day. And it takes time to report, yes, but also takes time from the developers to fix it. So sometimes the more time you spend on making a bug report easy to read and to reproduce and to follow, the faster it will get fixed, and the more stable we are gonna have a Blender for having fun with. Auto crash report, an auto report like VLC. Well, somebody I saw on right click select, there was a proposal about having a auto crash report like yeah, actually auto bug reports. Maybe it was you that you proposed it on right click select and auto crash. Well, I would say I mean, it's not too like, I don't know, what is the word? Play down VLC, but VLC like functionality, there are not so many combinations of things you can do on a video player. Yeah, maybe you can stream from weird places or weird formats, but it's maybe more predictable what will happen, that you can automatically send reports. However, in Blender, being a 3D/2D animation, motion tracking, fluid simulation, caching, GPU, extreme usage, multi-GPU, like it can be really way more complex than just auto sending a report. Imagine if every time people try to render a 20 gigabyte scene with 4 gigabytes of RAM, Blender will auto send a report because it will crash because it runs out of memory. The crash system report will get overwhelmed, to say the least. It's better when people spend the time to do these crashes over than flashing the system. That being said, maybe there are some kinds of crashes that can be automatically reported, but overall, I think it's better to do it by hand. Okay, that is all. Yes, I'm having my llama on a straw. I have to stop right now because I have to go into... I almost threw away my mate. Okay, no. I have to go because I have to do the Spanish version of Blender today, which is called Blender.Today. We have Spanish people that, or you want to practice Spanish, I'm going to do exactly the same, but in Spanish, and a bit longer because we also have, we have a contest, like a weekly contest for artwork, and we have questions from the community, and we hang out on the chat, and let me know if that's interesting for you for Blender.Today. I'm wondering if I should bring that stuff I do on my Spanish live streams on the English live stream as well. Other than that, we're gonna see each other next week, as always, as every week for the last 165-ish times, because some weeks we skip. However, we haven't skipped any week this year so far. So let's keep it that way and meet again next week at the same time, in the same place, for another episode of Blender.Today Live. I hope you had fun. See you again next week. Bye. Bye. Thank you for staying. Ciao.